to Public Health America, a weekly program produced by BronxNet in partnership with Mercy College. I'm your host, Dr. William Latimer. Here on Public Health America, we speak with experts from an array of specialties across the liberal arts and health professions to provide you with not only the best science, but practical tips to live a healthier life. We also celebrate what studies have long documented, namely the unparalleled value of a liberal arts college education by setting the stage to pursue a career of your choice, increase lifetime earnings, and engage in civil debate. Our experts will share decisions they made and support they received that helped them to beat the odds. By sharing one or two life lessons, their stories may provide you with the inspiration and method to realize your dreams. This is Public Health America. Welcome to Public Health America. I'm your host, Dr. William Latimer. It's my pleasure to have with us today Dr. Sean Daley, Associate Professor of Community and Population Health at Lehigh University. Sean, welcome to the program.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for having me.
Pleasure. So I know you've been doing some cutting-edge work on the intersection of religion, spirituality, and health, something that's certainly incredibly important to Chestnut Hill College, founded by the Sister St. Joseph in 1924. Tell us a little bit about your work.
Well, if I had to tell you a little bit about my work, there are two main themes that run throughout my work, and these themes have been a part of my research since I was an undergrad. One is working with Indigenous peoples, American Indians, Native Americans, whatever term you prefer, and the other is religion, spirituality, and health. For me, health it's a very holistic thing. It's not just the biological or the mental. It includes aspects of emotional, it includes spiritual, it includes community health, cultural health, linguistic health. So it's a much more encompassing thing for me in that, it's beyond just being healthy. It's about being well. It's about, being well. Let's put it that way, overall.
So I've been very fortunate at different points in my professional life where I also did some work with Native American groups, regionally and nationally. I'm not an expert. Tell me, what are the opportunities and challenges that you face in trying to authentically engage with Native American groups? Sort of, what are your goals? Are you bringing them, to Lehigh? Are you developing opportunities for discussion of spirituality and how that can, work on like an interfaith basis? In other words, I can imagine a lot of points of connection. I'd love to hear about the work you've done in that arena.
I think for most Native people, and I think this goes for a lot of people outside of mainstream Western culture, if you go and work with them and you're not including spirituality, you're not including religion, something's missing, something's wrong, it's not complete. So for example, even as something as simple as when you go and you're doing a community event somewhere, if it's appropriate to say a prayer to start that event, say a prayer. For a lot of people in mainstream American society, that gets weird, that gets problematic. So a lot of what we've done is just being cognizant of that needs to be a part of what we do. The work we do is what's called community-based participatory research, which means from day one, we have the community involved. From developing the idea to publishing the papers, we have community involved. There's, particularly when you work with certain groups, there's a lot of baggage that comes, historical baggage, particularly from academia. Scholars have not always done right by certain racial, ethnic, and political groups in this country, particularly American Indians. And so there's there's a lot of trust building that has to go on before you can actually engage and start working. And by including the community and the people you're working with, which to me just makes sense, that's how you really engage them, and that's how you get work done that actually benefits those communities. I'll give you an example. One of our big programs is a quit smoking program called All Nations Breath of Life. It's been developed over the past decade with Native peoples. And instead of going into a Native community and telling them all tobacco is negative, it's all bad, like a lot of other quit smoking groups do, we tell them recreational tobacco is bad, but you should still keep your sacred tobacco. You should keep your traditional tobacco for prayer, because that's what Creator intended it for, to pray. And so as long as you're using tobacco that way, that's not a problem. And by taking that approach, we've been received better, and we have really good quit rates because we're making that simple acknowledgement that tobacco is not just a recreational thing, and to divvy those two things out.
That's a great example. What I'd love to hear more is, maybe one or two more examples of the work you've done with Native American populations, like something similar to the targeted changing in smoking behavior.
Couple years. It's been a while now. We did a diabetes program. As most people know, diabetes is an issue in Native communities. It's an issue in a lot of places now, particularly type 2 diabetes, processed food, high sugar, things like that. A lot of American Indians, in particularly rural areas on reservations, supplement a lot of their food with the commodity food program. That's where you get food from the federal government. You see that in certain inner city areas and other areas throughout the US too. It's not just a Native thing, but the food's really not that healthy. So one of the things we did was we worked with community members and a chef to take the commodity foods and make healthy food choices. Given you have A, B, and C, you have limited money, so you're probably not buying the healthiest foods at the grocery store. What can you do with it to make it as healthy as possible? And again, we took the foods community members eat, and we tried to make healthy food options based on that. And again, pretty good. It worked out well.
That's great. Two great examples. What do you see as the next steps of your work?
I've always worked with American Indians. It's kind of been what I've done since, I think it was 1994 was the first time I worked with an Indian community, and that's pretty much what I've always done. I came here from Kansas a couple of years ago to Pennsylvania, Lehigh University, and I've had the opportunity to start pursuing a couple new areas of research. Still religion, spirituality, health is a connective tissue there. I'm starting to do more work with different religious groups, particularly the Roman Catholic Church, apologize. And I started to work with a couple of the local healthcare providers on pediatric palliative care and hospice care. So very, very different. But again, working with communities, working on the ground, working with the people who are most directly affected by certain issues and helping them address their issues. This idea is, what the issues are. The academics, the scholars sometimes have a particular way to approach it that might help that community. So let's pool our resources, work together, and in the end, help each other out.
So given the broad range of faiths that you've worked with, have there been opportunities to deliberately bring them together in discussions, perhaps finding common themes or what makes a particular faith unique? It just seems to me that there might be just such an amazing opportunity for those kinds of discussions, and within a college or university setting, doing it in a way that would benefit students.
It's interesting, particularly working with Native peoples. They're pluralistic. It's not uncommon to find a Native community member who will go to a ceremony on Friday night from his tribal community, go to another tribal community on Saturday, maybe a spouse's or friend's ceremony, and then get up and go to Baptist, Lutheran, or Catholic church on Sunday morning. So that's not really been an issue in a lot of work I've done, because again, in a lot of Native communities, this is common. The attitude is there's multiple routes to God, creator, whatever you want to call him or her, and people explore a lot of those different routes. And idea is it all goes back to the same place. Obviously, working with the Catholic Church, that's a little bit different. I have worked, kind of my entree to the Catholic Church was working with them, at least, was when I was out west, where a lot of American Indians are Catholic. And so doing something traditional and doing something Catholic was part of the culture out there.
Sure. That would be a fascinating intersection to try to make sense of. So with just about a minute left, what do you see as the next steps of your work going forward, particularly as it links to educating students?
One of the things we're working on right now at Lehigh is we're working on developing degree programs focused on Indigenous peoples. We have a minor right now. We have our first PhD students. So we're looking to develop some of those programs. And we're also starting to work with certain government agencies here in the state of Pennsylvania to develop some educational programs at the state level.
We're going to take a quick break. When we return, Dr. Sean Daley will tell us a little bit about his undergraduate experience and how that provided the basis for having the excellent career that he has and the work that he does. This is Public Health America. I'm your host, Dr. William Latimer. We'll be right back.
Most hiring algorithms would scream me out.
Some bosses couldn't see me as a leader.
I've run this place for 20 years, but I still need to prove that I'm more than what you see on paper.
I've been running code as long as I've been able to reach a keyboard.
This is what I do. It's second nature for me, coordinating 100 details at once.
It's the way my mind works. I have a very mechanical brain.
I sold them on my skills.
You gotta be so good they can't ignore you.
My magic is
Analytics and empathy. That's how I'm getting clients. You have to have the confidence in yourself to show up and defy the odds.
I'm more than who I am on paper.
I never got a college degree. And today, I'm the CEO of my own company. People want to tell me I'm one in a million, when actually I'm one of millions. Stars are all around us. It's time for them to shine.
How do you know when you've made the right decision? It's the feeling you get in your gut. The one that tells you what's right or wrong. It's the one that says, sure, I can have a drink. Or the feeling that says, okay, I've been drinking. Now what? It's the voice inside you that says, I'm buzzed. Better leave the car when it's time to go. Plan ahead. Catch a sober ride. Buzz driving is drunk driving.
You can now watch MNN, Brick TV, QPTV, and SIC TV on BronxNet. Tune in to BX Omni, Channel 67 Optimum, 2133 Fios during most Sunday evenings. We'll show you some amazing content from our friends at Manhattan Neighborhood Network, Brick TV in Brooklyn, Queens Public Television, and Staten Island Community Television. Every borough represented in the Boogie Down. Epic partnerships for the ages. And catch our new Next channel, produced in partnership with MNN, 24/7 on BronxNet Channel 952 Optimum and 2138 Fios.
Welcome back to Public Health America. I'm your host, Dr. William Latimer. Sean, we always start this part of the segment with the exact same question, which is, tell us where you were born and about some of your formative experiences.
Okay. I was born in New Brunswick, New Jersey. Did my undergrad at Rutgers University in New Brunswick, hometown. To be honest with you, I did not want to go to college. I applied to one college the night before the application was due. My mom and dad didn't go to college. It just wasn't something we did in my family. My mom and dad encouraged me to consider it. I did, I guess, to a degree. Threw in one application, got in, went, and within about a year being there, decided I actually liked it. And before I knew it, I was in a master's program, and after that, went right into a PhD program. Right after that, went right into a faculty position. So honestly, it's the only thing I've ever done in my life. Wanted to be a musician. Went to college basically to get gigs, and had a really good professor who I liked. He worked with Native people. And about a year after taking the first class with him, I found myself out on a reservation in Arizona, starting to do what I do. I think a lot of how I grew up in New Brunswick, in a blue collar family, in a community that wasn't rich and didn't have a lot of resources, really helped me when I started to go out to Native communities and work on reservations where resources were an issue and things like that. Honestly, I also grew up in a community that was very mixed ethnically, racially. So being the only white person in certain social settings, I was used to. So going out on a reservation and being the only non-native in maybe a group of 30 or 40 people, kind of was used to that. So honestly, how I grew up really has been an incredible benefit to the work I do.
Sean, that's such a great narrative, such a great story. There's numerous things that stand out for me. So you had said that you're a first generation college student. Your parents didn't go to college, but it does sound like that they supported the idea. Like they talk a little bit more about, like, I'm not saying that they mandated it. I'm just saying it's based on just what you said. It sounded like they were open to that and were supportive of it.
Yeah, absolutely. They were, as much as they could be. And I mean, you talk to any first generation college student, you know, mom and dads don't know about FAFSA. They don't know about certain things, you know, enrolling and you know, that's an issue. But yeah, overall, they were supportive. You know, my dad worked construction. He was a union laborer. You know, my mom was a secretary and artist, and they struggled. And they always did right by me and my sister. I'm not saying that, but money was always an issue. And they didn't want me to go through that. And, you know, their friends who had kids went to college who were older, they got out and they had jobs. A lot of them were doing what they wanted to do and getting up every day and going to a job you hate for, you know, 8, 9, 10 hours is not how you want to live your life. And my parents really tried to impress that into me and my sister. And, you know, for me, going to a college in my hometown kind of helped because still had some familiarity. And, you know, it wasn't that hard break of going really far away. So it worked well for me. And I'll be honest with you, as soon as I got my bachelor's degree, I wanted to get far away. So I went to school out in Arizona. Left Jersey and went out to Arizona and spent many, many years out that way. So I came back here in 2020.
Great story. Wonderful story, Sean. So you had mentioned during your undergrad at Rutgers that you had a mentor that was critically helpful and important to introducing you to Native American, you know, population studies. And I think you said got you that link to Arizona. Tell me a little bit more about that mentoring relationship.
Well, I mean, one of the things that I didn't realize until, you know, I got to college, since again, I didn't have grandparents, aunts, uncles, anyone like that who went to college. There's a whole world out there. There's things you can do that you don't even know exist. And so when I got to Rutgers, I came across this discipline called anthropology, and I'm like, what the hell is that? Started looking into it, and it's basically what I wanted to do was learn about other cultures, other ways of life, and spend time with those people. And that's kind of where I got my foot in the door. And I'll be honest with you, you know, prior to college, I did 13 years of Catholic school, and I got instilled in me this idea that if you're going to do something, try to do something that can help people. So I ended up going into what's called applied anthropology, which is learning about how people live, how they, what they do, what they don't do, and then using that knowledge base to develop health programs, educational programs, economic development programs that help that community thrive and then do better than they're doing. And again, having a professor who lived in New Jersey and said, hey, there's a whole world out there with Native people, was really helpful, because growing up in New Jersey, that's not something you come across a lot. And for me, it wasn't even on my radar.
Sure. You mentioned a lot of positive things, and you're certainly not the only Public Health America guest to talk about the real significance of having a nurturing, wise mentor. And clearly you had one, and perhaps others too. Were there some challenges you faced either heading into college or during college that you needed to work through?
Yeah, a little bit. I'll be honest with you. The further along you go, that gap between you and your family, that knowledge base, can become a problem. I was told several points in time, now that you're a college boy, you think you know better than us, things like that. Unfortunately, a lot of friends who I grew up with who started college didn't finish. So socially, it gets a little weird at points like that. And again, going to college in a town I grew up in, it was still that point in time in New Brunswick where there were what we call townies and, the college folk, and it kind of puts you in an awkward situation. But at the end of the day, none of those issues were enough to dissuade me. And I'll also throw something into the mix that was hugely helpful to me. I met my wife right away in college. It was, my second year there. She was also an anthropology major. So we did everything together: undergrad, grad school, master's, PhD. I mean, we've constantly been together. So having, an ally and having, at that time, a girlfriend and a fiance and a spouse, also was incredibly helpful. But again, at the end of the day, I kind of figured out what I wanted to do, and people around me helped me do it.
The idea of how one navigates one's community, one's interpersonal relationships, the idea that you were going on this journey and that there might be some people that you needed to leave behind, or at least not leave behind, but just say, this is what I'm doing and I would like your support. And I don't mean your parents, I mean more your friends. And I don't think that's easy, and it sounds like you navigated that quite successfully. And I think that's an important message for our listeners, because for first-generation college students, you are making a substantial change that will have an impact on your network. And I can't think of a more eloquent summary than what you just shared with us, Sean, about how to navigate that sensitive and important arena. So, and the other thing that obviously stands out is that you were very fortunate, to go on that journey with a partner that ultimately became your spouse, and clearly that was a significant, positive thing in your life. So, given this wealth of experience and the success you've had, how would you say your experience as a student has benefited and informed your experience as a teacher and faculty member? Now you're the mentor.
It makes you a little bit more empathetic, makes you want to understand where people are coming from. I'm not saying that I'm a pushover for that, but I do, take into account people have personal lives, people have stories, people have histories. And, sometimes that needs to be taken into account. That needs to be considered when issues come up. Personally, one of the things I always tell my students, and I've told them it forever, it's good to come into college and have a game plan. But don't be set on that game plan to the point that it becomes a liability. There's a lot in life, there's a lot in college, university, wherever you end up, you don't know about. And to have to change your game plan is not always a bad thing. Sometimes that's a benefit, and that's why you're here, is to learn things you don't know. So if a class comes up and you think you might be interested in it, take the class, go and learn something new. You know, yeah, it's important to get done in a timely fashion because this costs money. But I will tell you, before coming to Lehigh, I was at a community college in Kansas for 14 years. And a very large percentage of my students were 35, 40, 45-year-olds who blew through college with a game plan and didn't take that opportunity to explore something new. And now they're miserable and they're back in school. You know, if you are fortunate enough to get here, take advantage of it, fully take advantage of it. And again, for me, if I didn't do that, I wouldn't be doing what I'm doing. I was very fortunate to have my eyes open to new things and to try them.
Sean, that's great. You kind of just answered this question, but I'm going to ask it again anyway. In addition to that sage guidance you just imparted, so we have a viewership of the Bronx, Philadelphia, and beyond, urban settings, young people, people of all ages. If you were to provide one overarching piece of guidance about whether and why to attend college, what would that be?
I'm going to say something, and I know, thank God, your viewership's in the East. As somebody born and raised in Jersey, as someone who spent time in New York with family members, you know, now spending some time down towards Philly, those of us born and raised in this area, we are incredibly well equipped to go other places and do well. Anywhere I've lived in this country and worked, and I've been in multiple states over my times, half the time I run into somebody in a position of leadership, it's somebody from New York, New Jersey, or Pennsy. You guys are more well equipped than you realize, particularly with that interior, what's the word I'm looking for? That ferocity, I mean, to go out and conquer and do well. And again, yeah, it's going to be a little nerve-wracking to go to college. That's everybody though. You know, you guys are stronger than you think. And like I said, particularly people from this East Coast corridor, we go places and we do well. It's something about being born and raised here. Take advantage of that and use it. Take that East Coast swagger, go to the Midwest, go to the West Coast. You're going to do well with it.
That's great. You're the first person to provide that guidance, and I think it's fantastic. I want to thank Dr. Sean Daley for being our guest today and really giving just such a great exposition of his experience and his expertise, his work with Native American populations, and his journey through higher education. I want to thank our viewers for tuning in. This is Public Health America. I'm your host, Dr. William Latimer. We'll see you next time. Until then, take care. Thank you.